Shire.
Cowabunga, dudes and dudettes! For all of you heroes in a half shell out there, you may have been waiting and stoked for the new Tmnt game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. Well, as a fan of the franchise since the original comics, yeah, I'm old. And I was excited for this game with such high hopes. Now it's time to see if it'll be the best TMNT game since Turtles in Time, or be as broken as the first Ninja Turtle game on the NES. Let's find out. Let me start off by saying that this review, there's not going to be a lot of good things to say about it, but I will be fair and play both sides here, looking at the good and the bad, what little good there actually was. But let's start off with what I appreciated the most, the look of the game. Yes, it's based around the new Nickelodeon cartoon, but the developers had some creative freedom over the look and feel of the game. It's much more gritty than I was expecting, and the character designs for the Turtles were great. Each one had their own look and feel defining their personality. Ralph was much larger and brooding, whereas Donatello was lankier, a nerd-like body structure. It was a good way to incorporate an older audience and the younger audience to come together who are currently watching the show. What I really want to mention is that this game tried a lot of cool things. I see what they were aiming for, it just didn't work. Now let me explain with a few examples. This game had a stealth feature to it. They're ninjas. How did I not think of this before? It's a perfect idea. Problem is that it just didn't work in this game. One guard would be on patrol, so you stay in a crouched position to try to take him down, but he walks too fast for you. So by the time you actually catch up to him, other enemies have already seen you, and the levels just weren't made for much stealth. It was good for a few takedowns here and there, but not as a viable mechanic in this game. What I did like was that each turtle had unique stealth takedowns that matched their personality. Now that was a nice touch. Next up was the fact that you couldn't play more than 2 players on one console. And if you were with a friend, it turned into a split screen experience. Now, I know why they did this, I just didn't like it. They made the game more dynamic. The levels were multi-platform at times. It would be hard to keep everyone together enough to justify having multiple players on one screen. But when I first heard about this game, I couldn't wait to have 3 of my friends come over to play as our favorite turtles. But now we have to do it from our own Xboxes while online. Now the positive to this is that I did appreciate a lot that there is a menu in the game where you can play the stages you've beaten like an old arcade beat 'em up, much like Turtles in Time. And yes, here you could play with 4 players locally, but I really wanted to play through the game with friends on one screen. Another nod to an older audience was that you could turn on a filter in the game to make it look like the old black and white comics. This was nice for a moment, but the grittiness and the color scheme they originally went with was just better. Speaking of comics, each cutscene to further the story was actually just panels from a comic. Now this could have been good, but the art for them felt very lazy and didn't look good at all. It just felt like a cop-out. Oh, and the dialogue got annoying more often than not. Now there were some great lines here and there, but especially after hearing the same monologue from Mikey about pizza for the 50th time, you can see where it started to skew for a younger audience. Ultimately, this game was just broken. There was a boss I was stuck on for literally 2 hours because the hitbox on him was difficult to reach without getting stomped on. Now this wouldn't have been so bad if the dodge feature worked well. The combat controls weren't worth writing home about. In order to pull off a combo, you had to mash the buttons at a very slow rate, and it felt clunky and it just didn't fit the pacing of the game itself. Now my biggest problem with this game though was the camera placement. Again, I know what they were aiming for, it just didn't work. It's up close to the turtle that you're controlling, so it's more of a visceral experience, but Out of the Shadows had a counter system that did not go hand in hand with this. While the camera is close on your turtle, you're completely unaware that there's a guy right behind you and ready for an attack, and since you can't see him, there's no time to counter. The entire counter mechanic was shoddy at best and worked here and there. The game had a cool upgrade system for each turtle. That was pretty sweet and a nice addition, but was ruined for me when I upgraded some of my turtles' weapons. For example, I had an upgrade that allowed me to turn Leo's sword into a double-bladed staff. But anytime I tried to activate it, it wouldn't work. And there was nowhere in the game to explain how the upgrade was supposed to work in the first place. Nowhere. This just pissed me off because the concept sounded so cool. Also, just to throw this in there, they added a blocking mechanic that the enemies utilize, but your moves hardly would ever break the blocks with their own moves. So combat against large groups of enemies just became frustrating and relying on special attacks you'd get as your combo meter rose. And then maybe that land depending on what direction your turtle was facing. Combat-wise, they really wanted to expand on how Batman Arkham City played, but they failed miserably in my opinion. All in all, I'll be honest, this game frustrated me to the point where I didn't even want to play it anymore. I had such high hopes for this game and it came out completely just one giant disappointment. But I will say this, there is the potential for the TMT Out of the Shadows game to be entertaining and worth a buy if you have 3 of your own friends that can come together and play it online. Because you cannot rely on your AI team at all. They will just stand there and take hits, forcing you to do the majority of the work. They stood there, completely dumb. I see what the developers wanted to do with this game, they fell short. I give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows 4 out of 10. Maybe if they try again, it could be better, or at least just work at all and be playable. Till next time, guys, I'm the Jovenshire, and thank you so much for watching and listening to me rant about this game.